would like to welcome Giannina Wright, a solutions architect at FuelCycle, and Karen Barnes, who leads the solutions team at FuelCycle, to discuss brand health tracking, how to make your tracker actionable.
As Anastasia said, my name is Giannina, and I'm a solutions associate here at FuelCycle. And Karen Barnes is the senior solutions architect here at FuelCycle. And we're super excited to talk to you guys about our brand health tracker today.
For those of you that aren't familiar with FuelCycle, just a little bit about us before we get started. We call FuelCycle's Market Research Cloud a comprehensive intelligence gathering ecosystem. So through one integrated technology, we enable you, decision makers, to maintain constant connections with your customers, prospects, users, and uncover real-world actionable intelligence. We use advanced tools, automated, quantitative, and qualitative research solutions. We then power product innovation, brand intelligence, and an enhanced user experience across every key audience. Right now, though, today, we're focusing on the newest development in our automated quant research solutions, which is brand health tracking. So, Giannina, I'll let you kick it off.
Oh, I apologize. I was mute that time. My bad. So before we really get into FuelCycle's approach to brand health tracking, I think it would be a really good idea to first get a lay of the land of how FuelCycle, not just FuelCycle, but other places in the industry currently do brand health tracking. So first, let's look at just the cadence or how often brand health trackers are run today. So right now, brand health trackers are traditionally run on an annual or quarterly cadence, although annual tracking tends to be more common. Businesses will often incorporate tracking data like this to look backwards on their brand performance as a part of their annual review process. Now, if we're looking at the amount of time or monetary investment involved in creating brand health trackers, it's a lot on both accounts. So as far as just looking at time, it can take a long time just to figure out what information to prioritize in a brand tracker because stakeholders from all corners of the country need to be involved. As we know, the health of the brand is important for the whole company. And survey sampling, survey execution, analysis, and reporting can take a long time for a really robust study like this. And the demand for trackable information on brand health increases the cost as well. And finally, because the nature of brand health studies is so robust, the reporting and deliverables for typical brand health trackers are super exhaustive and holistic. It's not uncommon for trackers to deliver 50 to 100-page reports, maybe even more than that, which are likely full of great information. However, as I'm sure a lot of you know, it's a lot of additional time investment that it takes just to dig through the report, just to find the helpful, actionable deliverables that you need. And a big report does not always mean a helpful report. So that's the general overview of brand health trackers as they're done right now. And as we can see, it has a few challenges that we need to address. So now let's get a little deeper into what FuelCycle is trying to address in these challenges. I'll bring it back over to Karen.
All right. So we're not arguing here that brand health trackers are a critical business tool. There's a reason why most businesses invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in executing this research each year, and the results help teams uncover changes in the category perceptions, behaviors. They impact decisions across sales, marketing, and strategy. So brand health trackers are going to continue to remain an important part of any researcher and brand's toolkit. However, when thinking about brand health tracking in the market today, as Giannina walked through, we've identified two distinct areas of need based on the current climate. The first one is responsiveness. While most of the current trackers are done biannually or even less often, the pace of change in today's market is faster than ever. So products are being brought to market at a rapid speed. There's new competition cropping up. Shifts in market share from established to growing companies can happen overnight. In addition, the interconnectedness of the global internet has caused trends across industries to quickly reach audiences with varying longevity. It's hard to tell how long the trends are going to last. I just heard about micro trends this morning as becoming more and more common. And then obviously, as you all know, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, consumer behaviors and sentiment shifted at a more rapid pace than anyone had ever expected or that had ever happened before. So at the height of the pandemic, only 49% of consumers felt safe purchasing from brands they previously trusted. This is a huge shift, something that no one could have ever expected, and something that a normal tracker wouldn't have caught. So brands with those standard trackers in place were left scrambling to understand where they stood. Many were forced to quickly set up some supplemental check-ins to get a read on sentiment. But however, still today, the ambiguity and variability in the marketplace means more constant connection to consumers is very necessary. And so it was clear to us at Fuel Cycle that a new standard in tracking needed to be implemented in order to stay on top of this ever-changing market. The second area of need that we uncovered is actionability. So it's no doubt, and many studies have been conducted to prove that companies that value feedback are much better equipped to successfully pivot their business based on new consumer insights. However, the toughest and most time-consuming part of this process is that process of transforming data into an actual action plan. So not only is the traditional cadence for brand health tracking a slow one, but the process to gather the data, analyze it, identify significant changes, determine how to act based on this data can slow down the engagement exponentially more. Given the pace of change in the market, the time to process the data can sometimes make its findings and recommendations moot. Therefore, while this data can sometimes make its findings, while it's incredibly important for us to increase the cadence of customer feedback, it's just as important to have a system in place that speeds up the process of transforming insights into action. So that's the second area that we really wanted to focus on in creating a new solution. Now I want to bring us back towards our solution and what we're working towards and what we've built here at Fuel Cycle, and Janina will take us through.
Wonderful. So we're really excited to talk about how Fuel Cycle is approaching brand health tracking and how it addresses all the challenges that Karen just went through. So first, as we've heard, yearly studies are just not going to cut it anymore. We saw how drastically the world can change in just the span of a few months, let alone a year. So in order to combat that delay of insights, Fuel Cycle's differentiated approach utilizes a monthly system, which we call the thick-thin model. Now, when we talk about thick-thin, we refer to two different types of survey models that we use within our tracker to capture different types of information about your brand. So first, the thin model runs every month and it tracks various success metrics about your brand, such as conversion funnel performance, awareness, down the funnel to usage, further down to likelihood to use again, and other metrics like that. That's what this tracks. And whatever conversion metrics are most relevant to your brand and industry, we customize that to your business so that you can see how far down your funnel your audience is getting and how your brand performance on those metrics changes over time. And we also make sure to include your competitors' brand's performance on those metrics in this model as well, so you can see whether your brand performs significantly higher or significantly lower in those metrics compared to your competitors, and how those differences changes over time. And it will also run predictive market share analyses that will show you what percent of the market share your brand holds compared to your key competitors. And those are the things that we've built into this thin model by default. However, we do want to emphasize that this tracker is very, very flexible, and we completely customize it to be as relevant and useful to your brand as it can be. So we can add whatever trackable metrics you need in your thin model. If you're in retail, you might want to track the types of products that consumers are purchasing over time and how that changes. If you're in healthcare, maybe you want to track satisfaction with your services and how that might change over time. Whatever you need to track, we can fit that into the thin model of this customized brand health survey for you. So that is thin. Now we have our thick model, and that runs every quarter rather than every month. Now this is where we would capture those deeper, more robust brand health insights that you would expect from an annual tracker, while still having access to those more often than just from an annual survey. So those deeper metrics would include things like brand perception, attributes, consumer attitudes about your brand. And like thin, you'll be able to compare how attributes of your brand differ from competitors. The real cool aspect of the thick model, though, is that we've included advanced drivers analysis to the thick model metrics that will tell you which specific attributes about your brand are the most important in maintaining A, current customers, and B, important in converting new customers to become current customers. And again, this thick model would be customized to your brand and be as relevant as it can be to you and your company. So that is thick and thin and our approach to brand health tracking. As I mentioned before, since we are moving from annual to monthly, it gives you the ability to take faster action and to get you closer to making important decisions in real time as changes are happening. In addition to that, we've developed advanced analytics software specifically for brand health tracking, which cuts out the man hours in analyzing the data and generating those actionable insights that businesses need. And a part of those analytics include quick front page summaries of significant changes in brand performance from wave to wave, as well as direct recommendations on actions that you can take to improve your brand performance. And this will get rid of the need to dig through slides of data to get those immediate actionable insights, which saves tons of time for businesses and researchers. Now, as far as cost goes, we do have the ability to bring down the cost of brand health tracking because we've increased the efficiency of the sampling process, streamlining the questionnaire creation process while still making it custom to your brand and to your industry, using all those automated brand health analytics that I mentioned earlier, and more efficient deliverables. All of those things help us to bring down the costs of this solution. And lastly, FuelCycle has an incredible network of panel providers that gives us access to millions of respondents. So we'll be able to find your unique target audience and to collect them monthly rather than just yearly. So overall, that is the rundown of how FuelCycle targets brand health, and we're really confident that this new approach will bring lots of value to lots of businesses. And with that, I'll throw it back to Karen to talk about our secret sauce.
All right. So when we think about what makes our brand health tracker special, I think it's truly the ability to address those critical gaps that we identified earlier on. And that's where we really focused a lot of our development. Firstly, our advanced processes and that thick, thin approach that Janina walked through enables us to institute more frequent touch points without exponentially increasing costs or time to insight. So not only do we employ the standard best practices for sample balancing and recruiting, everything that you would expect with a brand health tracker, if you have any familiarity with FuelCycle, you know our company has a history with research communities. And our team has spent over a dozen years crafting and perfecting new methods for continuous recruiting. So with our experience supporting those hundreds of research communities, we've built relationships with the top panel companies covering a broad spectrum of audiences and geographies that allows us to find the perfect match for any target. And we've also built up optimal practices for recruiting and engaging with respondents to ensure the best experience and the highest quality data. This means more data, more often, and more efficient. More frequent touch points mean that you can be more responsive to changes in the market, and then also more closely attribute impacts of marketing or product releases to actual metrics. The second technique that we employ is around the back-end data processing and analytics. In order to ensure the quickest turnaround from data to action, we've automated much of the analysis process while still allowing flexibility in the questionnaire flow and design. This includes automation of standard best practices like brand versus brand or wave versus wave stat testing. But we also expedite the findings by providing a written summary of statistical differences, so it's easy to see what's noteworthy without having to dig through slides and slides or pages and pages of charts. We utilize a number of different analytical techniques as well to give us deeper and more actionable understanding of the data. One of those things is our share of wallet calculation. That uses an advanced statistical model used in other industries to begin with, but adjusted for market research applications to determine your predictive market share versus competitors. This has been tested and proven to be highly correlated with actual market behaviors. It's calculated at the individual level. So if you imagine for a CPG company or a retailer, this can help you give you a read on the percentage an individual is likely to spend you versus with others. And then also it's aggregated to the total sample level. So if you're a financial company or an insurance company, it can show overall projected market share versus competitors. Some other advanced techniques include what Janina mentioned before, what we call attributable effects. That's our key driver analysis that goes beyond just correlation. And it tells you where to focus to convert new customers and how many you're going to be able to win over with that action. So if you're a software company, this can tell you what benefits or features you should invest in to maximize likelihood to download your product or whatever other key metric is most important to you. And then also the expected usership you can gain by making those individual level changes. So this not only gives you a direct focus of action, but it puts the results in a language that makes sense and is motivating to executive stakeholders, which a normal correlation efficient isn't really going to do. Overall, we believe that automating the analytics provides a huge time savings. It also allows us to introduce more complex machine learning modeling and other approaches that you could never do manually. And then it also allows the focus to be on actions rather than insights when you're going through and making sure your business plan reflects the current market. So that's it in terms of really what makes up the core of our brand health tracker and what we believe is really important to be able to make your data most actionable. We would love to go through any questions that you guys might have, and we can hop into Q&A.
Thank you so much. I believe we already have some questions in, but if anyone else has any questions to ask, if you can please look at the Q&A section and just type it in. Let me go ahead and see what's come in. Okay, here's a question that's come in. What KPIs are part of the thin model?
Sure, so I could take this. So as we talked about, our thin model is the data that we collect for you that you can track over time, usually month by month. And the two really big things that we collect in our thin model is A, the conversion funnel, not only how your brand performs in the conversion funnel, but also any key competitors you care about. The conversion funnel would be specific to your brand, so we'd work with you to completely customize that for what you need. So that's number one. And number two is that predictive market share analysis that we've talked about a couple of times, which again, as Karen said, is really highly correlated with actual behavior when it comes to market share. So those things are the big chunks in the thin model. But again, really anything that you can track over time or anything that your brand is interested in tracking over time, we would add that into the thin model for you so that you can see those changes, not just for your brand, but also if you care about comparing against competitors, then we would add that in as well. So it's very flexible, but that's basically what we collect the thin model of this survey.
Great, thank you very much. I have another question that's come in. What specific calculations do you use as a part of your brand health tracker?
I'll jump in here. In terms of calculations, I know I mentioned a few in terms of our share of wallets and attributable effects, which is a driver analysis. We also obviously allow for stat testing, wave over wave data, and brand versus brand. So you can see how your brand is significantly different than others and how data is changing over time. We have a statistically based scorecard, which if you are asking more detailed metrics or brand attributes about how your brand is performing versus other brands, we can easily run that at your preferred confidence interval. And then the last thing that we employ in terms of kind of special additional analytics is something that we call targeted segmentation. So if there is a key variable that you've identified or an action that you'd like to drive, like your net promoter score, and you want to understand who your promoters are of the rest of the categorical information about your audience, we use a machine learning model that will aggregate millions of different data points that you have collected on your audience, whether it's behavioral data, demographic or psychographic data, and look to see which combinations of those profile points create or over-index on that behavior. So we can start to understand and give you specific segments of people that are exhibiting, that are your promoters. So you can start to target them maybe in marketing, or maybe it's people that you need to convert. So you can target them in future advertisements or promotions. So that's another piece that we run frequently, depending on what that major conversion metric is that you're looking for.
Great, thank you. It looks like we have a couple more questions that have come in. Is the survey design very strict? If not, how do you automate while allowing flexibility?
Sure, I can take this one. The survey design is not very strict, actually, which is very interesting for something like this. So as we know, if you've run brand health trackers before, you know that generally templates are not going to work. You need to make sure you're asking things in a very specific way to your brand, the metrics that your brand specifically cares about. We want to make sure that the study that we create for you is completely custom to you, and we don't want to put you in any boxes, so to speak. So it's a very flexible survey design. And the way that we automate while still allowing flexibility is that we've designed our brand health tracker to look at and analyze all different types of data so that whatever we put in there, it will analyze. So it's usually more around like the format of the questions rather than what the question is actually asking. And we'll tag them with certain things, like if it says this particular phrase in it, then analyze it this way. And again, the metric can be whatever you want. The answer option can be what you want. So be flexible. And we've really emphasized in the development of these analytics that it has to be flexible to fit all types of use cases.
Great. I think we have time for just one more question. Let me see what we have. How do you use the data to recommend relevant actions to take?
That's a great one. So the two biggest elements that we use to be able to take it from findings to action most quickly are the summary tabs. So for each of the types of questions that we're asking, we automatically go through, understand the significant differences, whether it's in your brand performance versus others, or changes over time. And we'll let you know those significant differences in a very quick summary up front, so you can understand what those changes are and what you need to be focusing on without having to dig into the data. So that's a quick way to sum up. We also have those advanced analytics calculations that do make more specific recommendations. So things like the driver analysis that tells you exactly where you need to focus and how those changes are going to impact your business. So both of those things combined, the advanced analytics as well as the quick summaries, enable you to take the data very, very quickly and move forward.
Great, thank you. That was a really great presentation and very actionable. I wanted to thank Giannina and Karen. And now we're going to move on to our next presentation.